10 things I wish somebody had told me before I started my healing journey. Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to my channel. So today we've got a juicy new video. Let's get straight into it. I wish I'd known these things to one, help me when I felt very confused in my healing journey, two, to give myself more grace, and three, just generally to know that someone has done it and come out the other side. Quick disclaimer, obviously a healing journey is a journey, so it is lifelong. But if you're new to it and it's your first healing journey, bear in mind, I believe we're going to go on many in our lifetimes as we experience more and more things. But yeah, if this is your first healing journey, I hope this helps. So the first thing is healing is not linear. So when I say linear, think of a graph where the line is just going up, up, up. Like a line straight up. I think many of us think as time goes on through a healing journey, your happiness goes up, up, up. I remember having a good day, a good week, good month, and then suddenly I'd have a bad day. Like I'd be triggered by something. And I would think, oh my goodness, like what have I done? Like my healing isn't working. I'm going backwards. But actually, that small little step is just part of it. It's just like another little obstacle that you get over. But remember that every time that you go over it, you get stronger. You can't directly measure how well you've healed by how happy you are. Like it's normal for you not to feel like getting happy and happy each day. It's not going to look like, whoa, you're happy, happy, happy. Instead, it's more so how self aware you are, how much you know yourself, how much grace you have with yourself, and also how much patience you have. And that's why I say healing isn't linear. Like it's so normal to feel triggered and have a moment and have many of, you're going to have some bad days. You're going to have moments that you're triggered again. But that doesn't mean that you're not still moving forward and you're not doing the healing journey correctly because you probably are. In fact, if you're not getting triggered again, I argue, are you even experiencing life properly? Because in reality, these triggers are going to come up. And the difference is how quickly you get back to regulating your nervous system, which is a point I'll get into later. Also, like social media and the internet in general has really romanticized and glamorized the healing journey, which I'm so grateful to have because honestly, like the healing journey is dark. You can feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. So if we romanticized it and made it all cute and girly, like if that's helped you stay on your healing journey, that's a good thing to me. But you can also feel like when it doesn't look as good and as romantic and as cutesy as you see on social media, you can think, am I even doing this wrong? But here's an analogy that my therapist gave me that really helped me understand why it feels so dark and disgusting at the start. So imagine your house, you've got a room. In this room, you chuck everything that you just don't like, everything that you're trying to avoid, everything that you just don't really want to deal with. And you've been doing so for years. You've locked the door, you've literally just like pushed it all away. Now, many years later, you go in and you're trying to clean this room out. It's going to be so messy, so dirty, so difficult, like so much resistance because you're finding things that you didn't even know you put in there. That is literally a healing journey because you're basically like dealing with the emotions and the feelings and the traumatic events that you've pushed away into like the deepest parts of you so you don't have to deal with it. But now, guess what? We're going there. We have to go there. That's literally the whole healing journey. And so you can imagine this is uncomfortable, messy, painful, sad, and extremely exhausting. Oh my goodness. I felt so exhausted during my healing journey. I remember thinking like, I'm not really like doing much, like physically, like I'm not doing much. I'm just sitting and journaling, reading, like why does it feel so heavy? Why am I so exhausted? But really, that's emotionally and mentally and spiritually draining as you're literally fighting everything that you thought was normal. Every single belief that you believed for years, every single way you react, like that is exhausting. So, yeah, expect that. No, it's normal. That's okay, but it will get better. Okay, on to the next point. I feel like we're on point two or three, but I can't remember. So, let's just say point three. You're going to feel like you need to be in self isolation a lot. And you're going to feel like no one really understands you. Like you're going to feel very lost and alone. And that's going to feel really weird if you're not someone that's used to being alone. And this kind of like solitude is actually necessary for your growing and your healing. I remember I was saying no to so many social plans, and it was a season where I was saying no to so many things because I just felt like I needed to like heal and like actually feel my emotions. And I just couldn't show up the way that I normally would. But remember that it's just a season of solitude. And eventually, like once you kind of get through the really dark emotions, the initial major like traumas, your capacity does get bigger for like being able to like go back into the world and going back into community. I know that sounds so dramatic, but I feel like you understand it if you've been on a healing journey. You just feel like, I'm sorry, I just don't have it in me to like go have a coffee when I'm actually remembering like something that happened to me when I was like 5 years old. Do you know what I mean? Like you just can't really be the same. But eventually you'll be able to like integrate it back into like normal living. But that process of like feeling like you need to be alone all the time can feel really strange and isolating because it is isolating. But I definitely feel like that was normal. And in fact, many other women that I've spoken to that have been on a healing journey have said the same thing. So I hope that brings you some peace, like, especially for me, because I was like 21 or 22, like basically in my second year of uni, like going through this. And I remember like I didn't even want to come home in the weekends. And bear in mind, like I did always come home in the weekends before this. But I just felt like I needed space to like be with my thoughts, like write and like feel things. Also, I think because you're so sensitive when you're going through this, like something someone else can say can feel like very triggering. So I personally felt like I just wanted to be in the safety of like what I knew and not change my environment too much where essentially I could get triggered when I already know that my heart is so open right now, trying to deal with everything. So the next point may not apply to you, but it also might apply to you depending on like what kind of healing journey you're on and where you're starting. You may end up losing some friends. What I mean is that once you go on this healing journey, you may realize that you've been tolerating friendships and relationships that just don't serve you. You may have not been setting boundaries. You may have been tolerating things such as disrespect or like jokes at your expense or feeling like you're left out and just generally feeling like you're not chosen by your friendships, but you're the one putting on the work. Things like that. Those kind of feelings where you know a friendship isn't good for you, but you're not really sure in yourself to just walk away. Your healing journey will actually push you to do that. Again, I hope that isn't the case. And I hope that you do have a few genuine friends that you can have. But remember that if you realize that friendships aren't aligned anymore, that was a friendship that unfortunately you've outgrown and no longer serves you. And that's okay. We're going to outgrow people. And as much as it hurts, it's okay. You have to push for the friendships that align with you and nourish you now. It doesn't mean you're a bad person and you shouldn't feel like a bad person if you feel like a friendship doesn't align anymore. I think with the healing journey, you think of all the things that you can gain, but you also will lose things that aren't meant for you, but it can feel weird. I have to remember that my healing isn't going to make everybody comfortable. Like people are going to feel very uncomfortable by it. I'm sorry, it's not really about them, especially if you got to the point where you're like, I need to go on a healing journey. This stuff is very serious and you probably feel like you've lost your sense of self and identity. But in the healthiest way, try to come to a point where like you can nourish that relationship if it's a good relationship. Like I couldn't sit here and tell you to be ignorant and to completely be selfish and put yourself first to the point of like not caring what other people think and feel, especially your close family and friends. Because what's the point of healing if you can't actually make the world a better place and have healthier, more loving relationships? I think it's quite an interesting balance, probably the most difficult balance actually. But that's when you've really got to be honest with yourself and be like, what are my priorities? What are my values? Like write on a piece of paper what are your non-negotiables in your relationships, what you're like willing to compromises, what are your values, what do you think is the most important thing in a relationship or a friendship. Don't feel like you need to choose having friends and family versus having yourself. Like fully choose yourself and then integrate healthy boundaries and loving relationships with your family and friends. This kind of goes hand in hand with my next point, which is your family may not understand you. The reason I mention family is because I think your family are like the closest people to you. They know you and they have probably heavily influenced your upbringing. And also, I feel like in every family, you always play a role. You may be the easygoing one, you may be the peacekeeper, you may be the one that like shows up for everybody, you may be the people pleaser, the one that always sacrifices or compromises. And when you stop playing that role that's always been expected from you, it can feel like, what are you doing? This has changed what everybody's used to. And so that can be an adjustment period for them as well as you. But remember, being a little bit selfish with yourself in terms of setting boundaries isn't a bad thing. And I think if you try your best to move from a place of love, always, especially with your friends, your family, with strangers, with everybody, and you can come to a place of agreement anyway. And that transition period won't feel so harsh. And obviously that doesn't apply to every family dynamic. Like not everybody is so understanding of the new version of you. Like some people may not be benefiting from this new version of you. Like this may be annoying for them. They may feel like they prefer the old you, the one that didn't have standards and didn't have boundaries. And in which case, always coming from a place of love may not be fully understood and reciprocated, but you do have to do what's best for you. Another thing that I felt was really intense sadness. When you sit and unpack your trauma and you're like, wow, when I was like X years old, this happened to me. I feel like you feel so sad and you wonder like who you would have been before all of that, like before the trauma, before the pain, before the disappointment, before all the hurt. It's really easy to slip into thinking like, I wonder who she would have been. I wonder how I would have been before all this pain and trauma. But the harsh reality is like, you will never know. And unfortunately, it's your responsibility now to like help yourself. And that is the most loving things you can do for yourself and not dwell on it to the point that you can't move forward. That was a very sad realization that I definitely had to feel through and feel sorry for myself. But yeah, part of healing is feeling sorry for your younger self. It's having compassion for that version of you, the version of you that had to endure things, the version of you that was created as a result of all of these things. But you have to make peace. There's a version of you before the trauma, during slash after the trauma, and then after the healing. I kind of touched on this point, but I just want to emphasize that being triggered again and feeling like you're having like a very weak meltdown or breakdown doesn't mean you failed. I repeat, being triggered does not mean that you failed. I used to think that healing meant reaching a point of serenity and peace where nothing affects me anymore. I thought one day I'd become this extremely self aware, emotionally intelligent woman who was completely unbothered and never triggered by things. But that literally never happened, and it probably isn't ever going to happen. Healing isn't becoming untriggerable because I'd argue that means you're not really feeling your emotions. I think healing is shortening the recovery time, knowing you're well equipped to know how to get out of that dark place. Like I definitely get triggered, but then I won't ignore it anymore. I'll be like, whoa, let's sit there, Arthi. Let's think about this, Arthi. Like, what's actually going on? Like, let's process, Arthi. Let's not chuck it in that room that we spoke about earlier, because then I'm gonna have to go in there and clean it out later, and it's gonna feel way heavier. Let me clean it out now before it gets moldy and dirty. And doing that just quickly takes the power away from it and literally transmutes it into good energy because I think anything that brings you back to like self love and self acceptance is always going to be a good thing. On to my final point. Having said all of that, you will never regret starting your healing journey, despite of going into like the unknown of like your traumas, your stuff from your childhood, and everything else. I would literally do it again 100 times because, in my opinion, that is the purpose of life. I think the whole point is to come back to yourself and come back to feeling safe in your heart, safe in your body, safe in your mind. Like, I think the whole point of life is to come back to yourself. Knowing how to come back home will always be the best skill for life. And as a woman, I've never met another woman regret going on a healing journey. I've never had a woman say, "Oh my gosh, I regret reflecting. I regret journaling." My healing journey has only led me to make better choices in my relationships, in my friendships, my standards, what I want out of life, like career, everything. Like it has empowered me to respect my innermost desires of my heart. And the clarity you get by knowing yourself and knowing like, oh, this thought isn't mine, or oh, I'm slipping it back into old habits, etc. Like that is such a good skill. I think as humans we all need. Like, yeah, as I said, I've never met a woman regret being more emotionally intelligent, more reflective, more self-aware. Remember, you will never be perfectly healed. There's no such thing, but you will know a lot more about yourself and you'll also be empowered to respect yourself and your standards. You will definitely feel safer in your nervous system and feel more regulated and more at peace. And all of those things just make the journey so worth it. So as always, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to know your thoughts and I'd love to know what specific points helped you. Like I have a bunch of lessons and things that generally I've learned through my healing journey, but I think I'll make that into another video. Anyway, yes, thank you so much for watching as always. Definitely leave a comment sharing your thoughts of what points helped you or what you wish you'd known in your healing journey. And as always, I hope we can all learn and grow from each other and everyone's different life experiences and wisdom. And I will see you in my next video.